So before we start the video today, a huge thanks to everyone who participated in the book giveaway. Very cool because, yes, the winners were picked at random, but it looks like, man, if this is a representative sample, that is super cool for me because I've taught for 20 plus years at a small state school in Western Pennsylvania, and that's who I taught, and that's who I talked with and had conversations with, people from Western Pennsylvania. This opens up the conversation to a far wider audience, the global audience. So for me, that was super cool just to even find that out and worth the contest alone. So I will get those books out to you as soon as possible, hopefully by Friday. But it may take a while because some of them are traveling across the globe. So one of the things, again, as I said, I was a university professor, and one of the things I noticed really dramatically from about 2010 to about 2020 was a huge reduction in laughter. And so when I lecture, I have a game show host quality to me a little bit. I like to think so. And I could get people laughing, and we always had a very light, non-serious atmosphere in the classroom. But that really started to change. Remember the quote, enlightenment is the transformation of anxiety into laughter, but that stopped. And there was just the anxiety. And so everyone got quite a bit serious. And of course, that's where the anxiety is coming from. The thinking mind is always serious. It convinces us that this illusion is real and you must take this seriously. And then from 2020 to 2023, I think there's even another huge jump in anxiety. So again, where is this coming from? Well, again, if we want to quote the best quote for the ego, Houseman, I, a stranger, alone and afraid in a world I never made. And that I comes from thinking. So the primary source of division in the world comes from the thinking mind. As I've done in so many videos, thinking comes from categories. You cannot think without thinking in categories, and there is no way around this. And so we create these dichotomies. We take the world and we slice it up into opposites, and suddenly you have to forgive yourself, as if there's some little you that isn't forgiving another little you, or you have to accept yourself. You have to love yourself. And in that same way, we've cut ourselves off of nature. So suddenly there's humans. Is this human-made, man-made, or is it nature? And so if you go to a mall and you're walking around, you're like, well, this isn't natural. I'd much rather walk in nature. But there's a trick to this, because the mall is just as much a creation of nature as you are. You didn't fall out of the sky. This earth grew you. So in the same way that grew your parents and you can go way, way back. And without the earth, think about one breath that you take. Everything that you will eat, and even something like the atmospheric pressure, if that was gone, you'd go flying into space. And so gravity. We've got so many things working together that we are just as much part of this world because it's all nature. There's nothing but nature. You are recycled stardust because you're all it. There's no you versus, we're not at a war with nature. But when you see things like climate change, that the anxiety comes from this thinking division that somehow there are humans and there is nature and we're conflict. And see, this is the trick of non-duality. The trick of non-duality is it's easy to be a non-dualist when you're hanging out at a campfire. Everyone feels that connection. But then when you deal with something like climate change, we all turn into the preacher from Footloose. There's good and evil, and the right must overcome the evil. And so the non-duality goes right out the window because non-duality is simple. It's just not easy. And to feel like no matter what happens with viruses, climate change, the whole deal, corrupt politicians, whatever, it's all natural. It's all nature doing its thing. Now, if you're Christian, you can do a little different take on this. It's the same message, but it's a slightly different take. And I remember, so I was in church and we were Catholic, and so there's a preacher, and I think he was talking about something in Genesis because I so overwhelmingly wanted to ask a question, which was completely out of the question. Well, what I wanted to ask is, when God made all of this, what did God use except God? And of course, you can ponder that, but it's a little difficult to come up with an answer that doesn't simply affirm that the only thing God could use would be actually God. And so when it comes to, and so this idea of like, okay, a mall. I went for a walk around the mall the other day, and you go, well, this mall just feels so human made. It's a creation of the thinking mind. And yes, it absolutely is. But that doesn't make it not natural. It's still a reflection of nature, and that mall is every bit as natural as the tree next to it. Sometimes they put one little tree in the middle of the mall to, ease the thinking mind a little bit. But the truth is, the tree, the mall, and even the thinking mind are all part of nature. It's all it. And here's the thing about getting back to the anxiety. When you get that feeling going, suddenly you feel less anxious. And that's when the creative solutions really come to you.